This is Get Real with Bob and Stacy, the show that helps you learn about the mortgage and real estate markets. Get the inside scoop from their expert list of guests and have some fun along the way. Now, here's Bob Gallagher and Stacy Alcorn.
Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real, and I'm your host, Bob Gallagher. I'm joined in the studio today by our co-host, Job Durini. Job, welcome back.
Welcome, Bob.
And then we have a special guest from Lair Real Estate with us this morning, Antonia Vaughan. Did I get that right?
Correct.
You're with Lair Real Estate right in Worcester.
Yep,
right?
in the Worcester office.
And you go by Tony, correct?
I do go by Tony, yeah. It's pretty easy, yep. Better than the Antonia.
Well, we like easy.
Yeah.
So we invited you in to talk a little bit about real estate and how you got started. Now, until recently, you lived in the Boston area, correct?
Yes, recently I moved to West Boylston in the summer of last year. And it's been a nice move because it's a big transition. It's a very quiet area versus the city's a lot of hustle and bustle. So I enjoy it. My daughter does as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what made you choose the Worcester area as opposed to Boston?
Well, I mean, Worcester has a lot going on. In Boston, it's kind of like the same rigmarole, you know, and it's a change of scenery for me.
Right.
I like Worcester because it's busy and there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of moving parts right now, especially with them getting ready to have the new baseball team. And
that's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah. And all the development that goes along with it, too.
Oh, yeah,
We're
absolutely.
talking about more hotels, office space.
I've had people calling me like, are there any lots that I can do like car parking lots? And I'm like, actually, no, there isn't.
A few people might have beat you to that.
Yeah, you should have started early last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot going on over there. And good eats. Lots of good eats.
Yeah. Things have changed a lot in Worcester like that we were talking before we got started today. Job, you were talking about your recent experience with the Worcester culinary scene.
Yeah, it's a much different demographic that you see now out and about in restaurants.
Right.
Versus, you know, I grew up in Clinton, have been a Worcester County guy for the majority of my life. It's actually just very good to see Worcester on the right path.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's becoming a city in its own right, not just Boston's western neighbor.
No, it's not just the second biggest city. Like, here's a weird statistic. It's, guess what? Here are multiple million people ready to work, and the new industry is science, for lack of a more accurate description.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more exciting than you can probably translate to the radio, Bob.
That's probably true. But the look on your face definitely translates.
Says it all.
Yes, it does. So what made you choose real estate? Because you made the change relatively recently.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well,
Actually, from a scientist.
That's a good point.
I was working in a lab. I was working in cytopathology, and I'd been there for a while, probably about 15 years almost. And I made the transition mainly because of parenting reasons, and I wanted to be there more so for my daughter, but also taking a look at the way that the economy is right now for people who are low income, being a single parent, realizing how, you know, difficult it can be to, you know, rent an apartment or to buy a home, and to be an active participant in helping people, you know, achieve that goal.
Right.
That was one of the reasons that I became a realtor.
Excellent. And how long ago did you make the change?
I did it in 2016.
Oh, wow. So not that long ago.
No.
But enough time to get some experience, which is good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another reason why I came to Worcester. I was in the Boston area, and nothing was happening for me. And literally, when I moved up here, probably not even a month later, I did a transaction, then I did another one, and then I was like, oh, wow, okay, so this is where I'm meant to be.
Yes, this is where it all happens.
Yes, yeah.
I think the entire county, but specifically Worcester, has some unique real estate opportunities, the price range itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I see that there's a big difference from the city, from Boston City to up here, but that is changing, I feel, at the very moment. And I see that there's a lot of different type of real estate, like equestrian. I didn't see that in Boston.
No.
I didn't see a lot of farmland in Boston. There's so much, like in Rutland, you know, there's so many different diverse areas when you come up this way into Western Mass. It's really great.
Which is another interesting point, selfishly on the Ross side, that those areas, a lot of those homes, people don't realize qualify for 100% financing through the USDA.
Right.
If they're in a certain income segment. So some of the customers that you're looking to service in that middle income bracket would qualify for 100%, and where in other areas they would not.
Yeah, and it's a great thing.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
So do you have a lot of other friends that want to move out here now from Boston?
Actually, no.
And do they want
I did
mortgages?
Thanksgiving, right? I did Thanksgiving at my home, and everybody drove up from Boston.
Oh, awesome.
And by like 9:30, they're like, "Oh, that drive up here? Okay, so we're leaving." Yeah. So I haven't persuaded any people up this way yet, but I'm sure in the long term, those things will happen.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, just if you look at just the difference in price from really anywhere around Boston to anywhere around Worcester, it's got to be a difference of at least $500,000.
It is. It's a big difference. On top of you get a lot more home for your money up here.
Right.
You get a lot more land. And depending on where somebody wants to be, there's a lot more going on. Boston is Boston, and don't get me wrong, there's tons to do, but you don't realize how many diverse things you can, once you get into Western Mass and you start seeing all of these different farmlands and what they have to offer. There's like Davis Farmland we were talking about near Sterling, and they have the petting zoo, which is great. You're not going to find that in the city.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that you can get involved in here in Western Mass that you wouldn't be able to take the opportunity to do if you were living in a city.
Yeah, it's true. So then it's like it feeds to everything. Like a city of Worcester, you can live in the city and still have access to the type of like produce and stuff like that someone who is a farm to table type person.
Right.
Like that really doesn't exist in Boston. That's a big pretend joke. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Where are they farming? On the island? That's the only farm in Boston.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
you can throw a rock and hit a farm in Worcester County, damn
Yeah.
it. And we're proud of it.
Sounds like we got a battle of the towns going on right now.
I don't want to get into it.
It is true though. There's a lot of reasons to move out here. I mean, if you have work out here, I wouldn't want to commute from.
Well, it's
Worcester to
funny
Boston
because
every
a
day.
lot of people that
Reverse,
are
right? I see
now are moving up this way
Yeah.
don't mind the commute because they're benefiting,
Right.
with how much they're getting in a home now.
That's true.
I have a couple of buyers that were out looking now, and they're coming from Brookline, and they don't mind, going further than Stowe, and they want to see houses in Gardner. And I'm
yeah.
like, are you serious? You're going to commute? And they're like, yeah, I don't mind. Look at how much I'm getting. If I bought the same amount of money to Boston, I'm going to get like this much.
Yeah.
And that's
Can you even get anything for $500,000 in Brookline anymore?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, a garage.
Yeah.
And if you look at like a commuter,
Yeah.
90% of their time is spent in that same 10-mile area anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know I'm not saying it's great to commute for Gardner, but what's the difference if you're spending an hour in the car anyway? An hour and 30 minutes? Because you're not hitting any traffic on the 30 miles from
That's true.
there to where it really gets busy for the city.
True. And now you got the commuter rail. You got the commuter rail in Westminster now that runs the no-stop service, non-stop service.
That's gotta be
It's an
phenomenal.
hour. It's an hour from Westminster to downtown Boston.
Yeah, it actually works now, and that used to be factually just a train to carry people after Red Sox games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now people are
Now.
actually commuting.
Yeah, that tells you something about that area.
Yeah.
That's what probably a lot of people moving over there. Yeah, that's great.
And now you've got the Worcester area. You got the Union Station, which is great. You can catch a
Yeah, I
train
saw
right
it.
into the
I
city.
didn't even realize that there was a commuter rail station in Worcester. That's
Really?
how dense I am. I said, "Is that the train?" And one of the guys was like, "Yeah, there's a lot of heavy traffic coming from the Worcester area to get out to Boston."
Yeah.
And my sister works for the MBTA, and she's the one who told me. She's like, "Yes, there's a lot of traffic coming from Western
Yeah.
Mass now.
Yeah.
A lot. They've had to actually increase the schedule.
Yeah.
So yeah."
But that line, the Route 9 line, I think they call it, or the Purple line, I forget what it's called. but
Purple line.
My wife used to ride that into Boston every day, and that one is the oldest and in the worst shape.
Yeah, they need a little bit of help.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that part needs to
A
be
little bit
upgraded.
more tax dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can still get into Boston in hour and a half from Worcester, which is not bad considering a drive.
I'd rather
would
take the
probably
train, than be in the car.
And you can do something while you're on the train. In the car, you're stuck just driving.
Driving,
Or
yeah.
just sitting in traffic.
Yeah, the commuter rail seems very sensible,
Yeah.
especially with all the moving around people are doing.
Yeah.
One thing I want to touch on a little bit, because we're focusing on Worcester County, and we don't always on this radio show, which
Yeah.
is, kind of where we are.
Yes.
I have a affinity towards, obviously.
Yes.
Is just the opportunity for first-time home buyers out here.
Right.
Like, I think along the lines of what you were discussing, not just more for your dollar, But the fact that you have a very healthy, if not robust, rental market here, and you can access a 2 or 3 family if you're a young, skilled person or long-term job or professional or doctor in an area that will self-support your mortgage still, but won't require you to put $70,000 down to buy a multifamily. I mean, these are huge opportunities. I mean, that and price range,
Yeah, and it's going to grow, so you'll actually benefit, long-term. If you purchase it up this way.
And, this inventory of multifamilies in Worcester that was seen as maybe something negative during the financial crisis is actually something that's incredibly attractive to these young professionals that are graduating college.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why they're retaining so much of the brain power that comes out.
Right.
Because it's a great real estate opportunity right off the bat.
And the multifamilies around the colleges around here, they're getting pricey by Worcester standards.
Yeah.
But still, you could buy 3 or 4 of the nicest ones in Worcester versus one of probably the most run-down ones in Cambridge or Somerville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're not getting similar rates, but you don't need to.
No.
You don't.
No, if you factor in what you're getting, though, if you spend, $1.5 million on 3 or 4 multis here versus one there, I'd be willing to bet you're making a lot more money here than you are out there.
Well, they're in great condition.
Right.
There's a lot of houses that are they were built very, very well up here.
Yes.
You don't see a lot of them needing a lot of work. No. And I don't actually see a lot of new construction up this way at all either. So that just says something about the homes. They're not tearing them down. They're keeping them and they're staying.
Yeah. Typically not inside the city, and that's different from Boston. Just my recent trips anecdotally to Boston have been everywhere. There's a blank spot. There's a tractor and a permit on it. There's not much available.
No. No. And that's why you see a lot of the tear downs once you cross that 128 line. Yeah. Although it's even starting to creep out west now.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's not. I think that, especially with the different cities, I don't think a lot of cities are going to go for that up here. And I think a lot of people are very proactive. Boston's kind of one of those, if there's a town hall meeting, nobody's really showing up except for the people who are always faithfully there. Yeah. Versus these little towns, they're homesteads and they want to make sure that they stay that way, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, through your transactions last year, Tony, I'm sure you did buys and sells. What do you think the most important thing for any buyer or seller is to know about you and about the transaction and about the value that you as an agent bring to the transaction?
Well, I think it's important for us to be on the same page. I think communication is like a really big thing. I have to kind of understand your needs and your desires and your wants and kind of come together with you in order to figure out exactly where you feel comfortable. Yeah. I think it's most important to have somebody who listens, and I'm a good listener. I like to listen to my clients and make sure I hear them. Yeah. And I always know that it's time. Everything is about time. I can't rush a buyer or a seller. I can't rush someone into a home. If it's going to take 20 or 30 showings, that's what it's going to take. Yeah. And until we find what you're comfortable with. And in the process, they're learning as well. This is something that someone doesn't do on a daily basis. Yeah. So I have to make sure that they're okay, that they feel okay. They're not overwhelmed. They're not, feeling like I'm trying to push them or that there's some type of rush, because this is the biggest purchase they're really going to make in their lifetime. So, for me, the value in what I do and what I bring to the table is just being a good listener and being a good person that actually takes the time to find out what your needs are. And I think that in this time that people really need to value what they're purchasing, and they need someone to hold their hand.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's in a time where we live in where there's so much available online, it's not, funny is the wrong word, but it's very consistent to see as consumers get closer and closer to the transaction, they want a physical human being to be there with them at inspection, to be there with them through the process, to give them advice on ancillary products that they need to buy a home. I mean, some people think buying a home is just you pick a home and that's it. I mean, you see.
Well, it's funny because
financing arm, insurance arm, appraisal arm, all these different things factor in, and you need someone to guide you through that process.
It's so funny because the beginning of the transaction, they're totally different towards the end.
Yes.
Because it's so much knowledge. Even as me being, a fresh realtor, I'm learning every time I go out the door. I'm learning something new. For someone who's not even in that, every part of the process, it's still overwhelming. And they think they know some things, when they're just starting, and then they realize they're just touching on the surface of the things that they need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have an overall education of every part of the buy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, one of the things you mentioned before we got started today, Tony, was that you have a drive to help build houses for the homeless. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So when I first decided I wanted to go into real estate, my actual driving force was seeing that there is so little development for low income. I know that, the state requires a couple amount of units, but I think there should be really, a bigger portion for people who are struggling with their finances, because everybody goes through that moment in life. Nobody just walks in unless they have that silver spoon in their mouth and their parents have given them that legacy without that struggle. And I think that we need to help one another with that. So for me, I've decided to create a foundation. And part of that foundation is me learning real estate, me learning building, and me learning the overall everything from being a builder to a contractor to a realtor, all the total moving parts of all of that in order for me to actually build, this foundation.
Excellent.
So that's what steered me in this direction.
That's great. That's a great way to go. Before we finish up today, I'd like you to give your contact info to people that might be listening that are looking to buy or sell in Worcester County. What's the best number to get you?
Sure. The best number to reach me is 617-373-0053.
And can you give it one more time?
617-373-0053.
Good. We're just about out of time. We really appreciate you coming in and joining us today.
Oh, no, thank you. It was my pleasure.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after these messages.